Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fictional Escapist. Today, we are joined by three wonderful human beings to launch or pre-launch The Blood Curse, which is coming out on March 30th by Jessica A. McMinn. And we'll start off with a round of introductions. I'm sure everyone knows who these lovely people are by now, but we'll start off with you, Jess, go down to Krystle, and move across to Connor.
All right. Hey everyone, I'm Jessica A. McMinn. This is my pre-launch party because I stupidly scheduled a launch on Easter weekend, so no one's available. So we're launching today. I write really dark fantasy that's got lots of action and gay people in it.
I like action and gay people. That's entirely my Venn
My two
diagram of
favorite
interests. And I
That's
suppose
the hierarchy, right? Action gay people.
Yeah. I suppose that's my qualifications for being here. I'm pro action, pro gay. I wrote books with a lot of hot mess gay people in them, and also I'm a big fan of Jam just in general because she's fantastic.
Yeah. Wait, is it my turn?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm gonna go with what you said. Yeah, I am here because I'm here. I'm here as moral support for Jam, and that is I'm here to cheer on your violence and your gay people.
You also wrote books with people.
I wrote a few, but like we're listen.
We were told to introduce ourselves.
No, we're all plugging each other. That's what we're here for.
I guess I wrote the halls all there is, and that's what in the street.
Communal plugging.
Yeah.
And it's disintegrated within 2 minutes of this being
Oh, I didn't know it was going to be that kind of live stream.
So it's probably
always that kind of live stream.
To a different app.
A good time to say this is not a family-friendly channel.
No, please leave if you're underage or stuff.
So speaking of action and gay people, Krystle and Connor have both
going to be about plugging
action and gay people, and we're all plugging each other in here. So you know,
my mum's gonna log on at lunchtime and be like, "What is this?" Hi, Mum.
Watch this be my most watched video.
Sorry, I've killed Krystle already.
Yeah. Anyway, so welcome to the Blood Curse launch party, everyone. We've got a number of questions to go through with Jess, and if you all want to jump in and ask questions, I've got a few from one of Jess's fans on my phone ready to go as well. But first and foremost, this will likely contain spoilers for book 1, The Ruptured Sky. So if you haven't read The Ruptured Sky yet, then just stick around for the vibes and close your ears, I guess. So the first question is, tell us a little bit about the Blood Curse and what we're uncovering in the second installment of the series.
Alrighty, so it is a direct sequel, so it picks up literally days after where book 1 ends, because for those that have read it, it is quite an abrupt cliffhanger. Like all of it, but that's what it is. So it picks up sort of straight after that, and we, instead of sort of being, I guess, a centralized group, we're now quite branched off into everything. So we're going with 2 locations, 2 storylines, and we're all moving in still sort of the same direction, but we're branching off a bit. So we see everything's a lot bigger this time. So bigger monsters, bigger trauma, bigger magic,
bigger gays.
Bigger gays. More gays. We're all gay now. Pretty much.
Look, there's a lot more gay in the book, and
there is a lot more gay.
Question all about the gay.
We do have a question about that, so that'll be fun for Mum. So yeah, look, it's very much the same thing. Very high action. Still very character driven. And yeah, it's just bigger.
I have to say, I'm always really impressed. I do hear a lot about like how awesome your world building is and how big the action is and all of that, but you always manage to fit it into quite short books. And you kind of give yourself a hard time, like, oh, I wish I could write chonkers, but I totally reject it as an implication that what you're doing is not in of itself an amazing skill, like that you're able to get that big sprawling feeling, but with these really much smaller books. So
yeah, do you know how many times
big
people
action,
told
but
me,
still like a
what
tight.
they would give to like write something smaller?
Yeah.
I just write very sparse. That's just sort of my writing style. Like I don't really want overly complex descriptions because I don't want people to either get lost, and I think I sort of like to give people enough that they can build on it, but not be so didactic that they're like, you know, they've sort of lost the action that's happening because there's been so much attention given to setting the scene. So it's just trying to get that balancing act. But and same with like even emotions. Like I love reading stories that have like big passages of real like intense moments and really getting inside that character's head. But I do that, but I just pare it back, give it enough that the reader feels it, but let them build on it as well. So is this lazy writing? I don't know.
No, it's a skill. It's a skill.
Yeah. No way. I think there's something to be said for, both sides of the coin. As someone who likes a slow burn myself and that heavy description, being able to have something that is so snappy but still so epic and
satisfying
at the same time. Yeah, it was an awesome reading experience. I say that totally unbiased. As someone who really enjoys your writing.
Thanks, Chris.
Well, but that is unbiased, because I feel like, if anything, I'm the one with the big bias here, because I knew her as a person first, and so I'm gonna be so biased once I go in. Like, no matter what happens. But I think if you come into it as a fan, that's kind of.
You're not having like the parasocial thing sort of interfering with your ability to judge the quality.
I think I found you on Facebook, right? You were doing an art.
Yes, I did. In one of the Facebook groups. Yeah, I just put that out and was like, "Hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna put some stuff out here and see what happens." Yep.
And I, as a new reader, also did not know what I was doing. It worked out quite well.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was a very early foray. So it would have been February. I think last year was when I only started doing stuff. So it's been a while, 12 months.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's not that long for how much you've accomplished. So this is like the Jessica Counter Education tour, where I've listened to her whinge since we got close, listening to her whinge about how she's not accomplishing enough.
I whinge a lot.
No, bitch. Fair, like I get it. This is but then I get to offer you the counter. Narrative
you've done so much.
Statistics and stuff.
Yeah.
You're like doing better than average in terms of like how your first year usually goes as an indie.
Yeah.
It's like the fact that you've got a book coming out, like book 2 coming out within sort of a 12-month period is amazing.
That in and of itself is crazy.
Oh yeah, that won't happen again.
What's that feel like?
Some of us haven't even done it once.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't written like anything since.
Yeah.
I handed the Blood Curse over to my editor the 1st of December, and I haven't written anything since then, really. I've written a couple of thousand words.
That sounds like my relationship with Brick and Bone, though, so I feel like you're right on track. You're doing all the stuff
I can now just languish and burn.
Pains. Yeah. All these
every time I finish a book, I have like a period of time for like a few months, sometimes even up to like 6 months, where it's just like I can't do anything. I'm just completely useless for the next like few months, and I just bounce listlessly between ideas, trying to find anything that sticks, and it just sort of doesn't land for the longest time.
Been lucky, I guess, in that because I have been busy, I guess, prepping for the launch, I don't feel unproductive. And then I'm just wasting time. I still feel like I am doing something because I've got to focus on getting the book out. And then sort of, I guess, April, I'll probably be like, oh, God, I really need to do something again. So, well,
in like 6 days. Right?
It is.
It's social media and marketing yourself. And we'll get into sort of marketing a little bit later. But it's not just sitting down and writing a book. I think that's what everyone sort of discovers when coming into
And then
this.
so like writing the book is not the hard part.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. In some ways, as hard as it is to actually write and finish and edit and et cetera, a book, it is the first and in some ways the smallest step in this journey of making this into a career, and it's like the easiest. Like this, that's the step you wanted to do. You were always gonna do that part, and now you've got to do all this extra stuff.
Oh, honestly,
yeah.
I don't know how people have time to like make TikToks and stuff and reels and everything. Wish I could.
Not having kids, in my experience.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say it, Connor.
That's okay. I'll go there for you.
Yeah,
it would help. Well, fortunately, none are at home today, so there's not going to be interruptions. But yeah, that's certainly something.
I do want to keep talking about the story and book 2 and sort of the progression that we've done. So book 2 has taken sort of this turn where the group have had to go out and separate and make discoveries of the world and the magic that they're in. So how, as the author, because your books are quite short, in terms of fantasy and chonkers and things like that, how are you able to achieve all of that but keep the story arcs aligned?
Happy accident.
Spoken like a true pantser.
I get I don't plan hugely. Like I think it's more that I have like a pivotal scene that's going to happen in the book, and I then work towards those, and then everything either falls into place or it doesn't, kind of thing. So in book 2, the pivotal scene that had been in my head forever was the reunion, and that was sort of where I built the book around. And then I sort of just had to figure out what Kriya was doing on my own. Like that was all something that wasn't originally planned. That was just like, oh shit, he needs to do something, so I gave him something to do. Not very well, but he did it. So yeah, I guess there's still everyone's got their own agenda, I guess, and their own storyline, but they are still moving towards the one thing, which is break the seals, raise the goddess. So it's just whether I guess that helped keep it on track because they are still moving in that direction, and everything. But yeah, there wasn't a huge amount of planning to make it align. So I'm glad to hear that it does.
Esme and I were like debating about Kriya the entire way through the book, whether we liked them or not.
Oh yeah, no, that's valid. I don't know if I like him. That's my relationship with him, basically. And it's like, why are you here? Well, okay, so he was originally written in the story to be a love interest, was how it was originally conceived. But then Amika became asexual, so he's like entirely redundant. And like, cool, what do I do with you now? So
I kind of love this unintentional inversion of gender roles as far as storytelling goes, where I'm sure off the top of our heads we can think of plenty of fantasy novels that have treated the women in a similar way, and you know, we see so many flat women in the genre because of it, whereas this, it's like
to be the healer or whatever the
fuck. This is Stella Slender, shut up. But
I didn't even think of that. You have so many different women though. Like there's not like the one
Stella
woman
is a queen,
like, whatever, who's just the healer.
No, but
stop devaluing the women in your books.
No, I'll self-deprecate if I want to. Thank you.
All right, but I'm going to compliment you every time. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I don't.
This is the plugging stream. Remember that.
Yes, communal plugging.
Oh
god!
But it's just and I find it especially entertaining that it was totally unintentional from you. Like, it doesn't sound like you set out to flip the gender roles on them at all. It was just your focus. But then
I didn't want to have a female character that was driven by her love interest, especially because I guess her sort of whole origin still retain some of that, like, you know, typical, she's running away from an arranged marriage, and I didn't want it to be a story of like, oh, she's run away from this and now she's found true love and everything she does is going to be just to get her true love and be happy and blah blah blah. So I didn't want that for her, and turns out she didn't either. So we're sort of then being left with Kriya. So
I love that there was a moment in the book where Amika was like, "No, I don't want any of that."
just like, no, it just wasn't for her.
So, speaking of characters that do want relations, with one of the next question is all about the gay that comes into the book. So there was a love interest, and it was introduced in book 1 between two particular characters, and I think that the influences for these two to go steamier are in the chat right now. But there was an increase in the sexy scenes. So what brought this on? Because I'm
not Connor's leaning forwards now. Like, really piques the interest. Like,
so it was something that was always on the cards. Like, I did always plan for it to go down that route. So it was always intentional, but I was sort of debating of how much I put in, whether I did fade to black. And I think even in early stuff when I wrote the early last, so there is also a sex scene in The Collector's Lost Things, which is my Sphinx novella. And I was sort of in that phase of it's sort of not really fade to black, but it's not really explicit. And I'm just like, I need to sort of pick an option here. So I went hard left, very hard. And so it's gone multiple times instead of just the one. So everyone's probably, I don't know if it's going to.
Good for them.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to appeal to everyone. Hi, Mum. So it's going to be interesting.
Reading the book, I was like, oh.
Yeah, so she's got a proof copy at the moment, so. But she's a slow reader, so
you were braver than I am, honestly.
Yeah.
I didn't even have a ton of explicit scenes, and I was still told every member of my family, like, don't read this. I know you didn't even read the last one, but don't check this out even more.
Please don't read it. So that's where, why did I go that way? Well, that Matar person. Well, I'm pretty sure when I was writing it.
I was like, here it is, here it comes. Here's the moment.
When I was writing it, I was like, how much sex is too much sex? And I'm pretty sure Krystle's like, there is no limit or something to that extent.
There's no.
And I'm like, look, I'll just put it in and see what my editor says, and I can pull it back if she says to. And she didn't, so there we are.
So it's not actually my fault.
If you don't like the amount of sex, send all your hate mail to Jam's editor.
Yeah,
for
not stopping her.
But I was reading some more like spicier books last year as well. So that's sort of I think the KJ Charles books, which were great.
Oh yeah, the Magpie.
The Magpie Charm of Magpies, Magpie Lord. That was really good. They are really short, but what she achieves in those, like they're like 6 hours on audio. They're really short.
Oh wow, yeah.
So like 280 pages. So shorter than mine, but there's so much happening in them, and the writing is just amazing. So that was sort of like another influence. But story-wise, it was always going to happen. And I guess when you've got an established relationship in the story that have been separated for such a long period of time, there's always going to be a payoff. As such, like it needed to happen.
What's going to happen? What happens? Just the payoff.
Yeah, describe every detail of the payoff.
Okay. No. So I know Chris had a tough time reading that. Would you like to tell us more about your experience reading this? But yes, and you're like, I was not prepared, and I'm like, what? What for what? What part of this book is your favorite?
I think I was in the lunchroom or something, and I was like,
oh no!
I've just gone to that embarrassed, like, oh, that's happening right now on this page with large text, and the lady behind me was like, oh, and I was like, Oh, so you're reading over my shoulder.
Don't do that. Never read over people's shoulder. That's why you might get surprise penis.
Anyway.
But maybe it's a bonding exercise because if it like.
Yeah, maybe they'll come back to you like, what was that cool sex book you were reading? Can I check it out?
Actually, just spat out my coffee, guys. That's like a wasted resource here.
I was
about to say, drinking in this company is definitely an exercise and a foolish amount of trust.
But I have to do something. I can't just sit here and not drink, especially because my phone is there and I can't fiddle with it either.
Oh yeah, you can't be browsing Twitter during this situation.
No, I can't. How dare I not be able to doom scroll?
Yeah.
I feel like I was so vanilla before I read all 3 of your books. Because I remember being in the gym listening to Legacy
That's
of the
a huge accomplishment. You've turned Chris into a pervert. Are you happy now?
Excuse me, it's all of us. It's you two as well.
I listen to Legacy of the Bright Wash and then the Fall is all there is.
My crowning achievement, my pride and joy, is poor Tom Bookbeard from Fanfi Addict, who listens to audiobooks in his car on his work.
Oh, amazing.
And you know that if it's loud enough, anybody walking down the street can hear what's going on. And I've gotten a few words from Tom at this point now, and he hasn't even read the second one yet.
Oh no! Oh, he's
I've
got
read
to
the second
out of the
one,
driveway real quick.
Oh well, I think you're in for an orgy,
chapter.
Chris. So strap in.
I'll be listening to that one in my car. So
it is very good on audio. I love the audio.
Yeah, Felicity and Paul. Where I feel
So
like I married up a little bit in this situation. Like they're so far.
You say
that, dude, I hear their voices when I read it because
yeah.
Oh, thanks, Taylor. I hear their voices, especially because I did read Brick and Bone before the audio was out because I couldn't help myself. So I still heard the thing, but I am actually spoiled for Jason because we have a comedian here in Australia that does this like guy that. Have you seen him, Chris? What's his name? Jimmy Rees.
I don't.
He does the guy who thought of and then sport and like does all the ridiculous stuff.
Oh yes, I know.
Yes, so and they've got the Jason. So every time Jason is in the story, I'm just like Jason. So I'm spoiled for that, but otherwise, I do hear the narrators' voices like for Pigeon, especially how Pigeon's pronounced.
Yeah, especially how Felicity does it. Yeah, and I found like I feel like having listened to my audio narrators has made me a better writer in the short term because it's like it's given you a layer, or it's given me a layer of like hearing my own clumsy habits that I hadn't edited out of Brightwash, just because it was my first.
It is so different hearing it. So when I self-edit, I actually read aloud, and that really helps me refine sentences and dialogue as to where same as I use a lot of italics as well, like for word stress, because I have such distinct voices that I hear for the characters, and I want it to hit in a certain way for rhythm and tone and everything. So I do use a lot of italics. I also use a lot of semicolons, which apparently some people don't like, but I'm not changing that. So but you don't actually notice that if you do it on audio, not that I have an audio book, but one day maybe.
Yeah,
I never listen to my own audio book
at the moment.
The dude who did my audiobook kept sending me files. He's like, "Here you are." He'd send it to me a couple chapters at a time and be like, "Here, you can check this, make sure it's all good, make sure I didn't like say anything where you had a typo and you meant to say a different word." And I was like, "I'm not even gonna listen to this. It's all good. I'm just going to approve it." Like I'd wait like 3 minutes and then be like, "Yeah, I definitely read all like 20 minutes that you just sent me." Yeah, and he's like, "Are you sure you like?" A couple times he's like, "Are you sure you want to approve it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm not gonna read this. I'm not strong
I
enough.
also feel like
75
typos and that kind of tracks for Peter. So
Yeah, that tracks.
it's like, I just used the wrong word there, but we're just gonna go with it.
Yeah. It's an in-world typo, actually. It's
Yeah.
diegetic.
So we touched on this a little bit earlier, Jess, when you were speaking to Krystle and Connor, but one of my favorite things about your writing style and this world that we're in is you're really able to world build through your characters. There's no info dumping. It sometimes for readers the heavy travel scenes can get quite stale because we're just seeing things happening around us without any of that character development, but you always keep us moving forward. At no point in this book do we stop building on the world, do we stop building on the magic, and I think you do so well with really snappy prose through the character lens. So was this something that comes naturally to you, or was it a conscious decision that you made when you were writing the story?
With the Blood Curse, it was more conscious because I had a lot of work over the Rupture. Like the Ruptured Sky I was probably about 5 years in intensive sort of critique partnering and editing phase. And during that time was when I was working really closely with one of my mates from uni. So he's been sort of working with my writing since like 2008. So he knows it quite well, and was able to say like, look, we don't, or this character wouldn't notice that about the world. They wouldn't notice that about the city because they've been here before, kind of thing. So he really helped frame it that way. So it was a lot of work during the Ruptured Sky, but it sort of came a little bit more naturally during the Blood Curse. And I think, or something I've thought about more only recently when I did the live with Connor was talking about with I guess the influence that reading manga and anime has had on how I tell stories. So being a visual medium for like manga being graphic novels, it's very visual. So you don't, I guess, just get pages of traveling. Like if the traveling happening, there's you seeing something else happening, whether it's the characters are bantering, you're not just describing trees for 6 pages kind of thing. Like they're so action driven, and like each little, because it's released weekly or monthly or however often the serial publishes, each chapter sort of has something happen because they've got to keep people wanting to read next week kind of thing. So I've really pulled that into, like I subconsciously pulled that into how I write, which is why I think it comes across as being so fast, but also it keeps stuff happening. Yeah. It keeps stuff happening with not just like, here's a pretty description of a field that we're sitting in. Like they're going to be doing. It's not that I have any issues with that, except I can't read Tolkien.
Oh no!
I know I'm outing myself there as being a bad fantasy fan, but I can't read Tolkien. I've only heard about people's reading experiences with Tolkien, and I'm not here for 6 pages of singing or trees or Tom Bombadil. So,
I feel especially honored then that you made it through like Stella's traveling.
There's stuff happening though. Like they're not just moving. Like we're learning more about, I think a lot with Stella's chapters is we're learning so much about the talent and what it does and how it works and everything. And there's quite a lot of action in that whole sequence with her moving. So, yeah,
so
like it's.
I feel like a speedy wink needs to be put there.
Well, no, not her section.
No, action. Like someone gets shot in the ass.
Yeah, because
spoiler alert.
I read a very different draft of Stella's section then.
Yes, you did. Yeah, none of that.
There was a lot more of the other kind of action in the version I read in like 2021.
Yeah,
See, I keep hearing about how many sex scenes were edited out of Krystle's
so
stories.
many.
So now I'm actually
confirm.
of the opinion that Brightwash and Brick and Bone aren't that spicy.
That's for the special edition, right? Where you get all the added content on the Kickstarter.
I'm waiting
there's
for you
so
to
much
put out
of
like
it.
a Patreon that's just like the XXX
Yeah, come on,
edition
get on
of
it.
all of these books.
Yeah, there's so much of it that I have wondered about how to monetize some of it, because it's like if you've come for that specifically, then I should at least get some, monetary reimbursement for all that.
And
Yeah.
people will pay.
Yeah.
You
I
probably
keep
wouldn't need to
waffling
edit
on
it
it.
that much. Just
No, I
clear
wouldn't.
that it's a draft.
That
Also,
would
you
yeah
are
that,
very clean anyway.
that
It's
would
like
that would be the
OnlyFans for
deal.
books.
That it's like yeah, exactly. It's the
Oh.
Tainted Dominion OnlyFans, and none of it's canon. Like none of it actually impacts the story because I cut it out. It doesn't count. But there you go. You can see all the.
Please call your Patreon that. The Tainted Dominion
Tainted
OnlyFans.
Dominion OnlyFans.
I don't think Patreon will let me do that. I'll have to find
Well,
a
they
platform.
let you put sexual content up there. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's where the artists put their spicy paintings.
That's true.
You just have to have a little disclaimer that like only people over 18 can pay you for it.
And that you're not actually affiliated with OnlyFans.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go.
See?
Yeah.
As long as you never do OnlyFans, you're good to go. I know it's going to be very hard to stay away, but I believe in your ability to persevere.
Yeah.
That income source gone.
Hey, people make bank on there for taking photos of their toes.
Yeah. That's the only medium that's tempting to me ever. It's like I feel like I could do feet. I could do that. I could make
Yeah,
money
you
off
want to see my
feet.
little curled up toes? Here you go.
This took a weird turn. Going to
Sorry.
ask another question.
Please do.
So Rio's feet. No, I'm kidding. All right. So there were more characters introduced in this book, and one that I loved and Esme also wants to know about. So we have some questions from Esme. I'm sure most people know who she is. Is about
Only
Emanas.
one of
How
the
do you
best.
pronounce it correctly?
Emenaeus.
Emenaeus. Definitely pronounced that wrong in my head the entire time.
That's fine.
But I fell in love with this character, Emenaeus, as we went through. I know that Esme Diggs were talking to each other through the whole buddy read that we did. This absolute badass stole the show in book 2. Was she always part of your bigger picture and planning, or is this something that happened sort of organically as you're writing the story?
No, she didn't exist until I probably came to actually sit down and write book 2. We get a glimpse of her very late in the epilogue of book 1. So when I was late in the editing stages of The Ruptured Sky, I started to bring her in. But no, she was very different. So she is actually she was created from where I split some of Keo's storyline. So she fulfills a role that originally in my very early drafts that Keo did. And I'm like, no, he doesn't need to do that. But also because, so with the sort of the culture and everything of Korak, which is where they are in book 2, I didn't want to have a white savior come in and fix the civil war issues that were happening there. So I'm like, I need a strong character that's going to fit from this culture and carry that narrative rather than someone coming in and doing it for them. So that was sort of why she ended up fulfilling that role. And I had a lot of fun writing her, so I'm really glad that I ended up going down this path. And I kind of like that my male characters are really shit and useless. So I kind of want to keep that now. So, they are respect. Kriya is such a pathetic shit, and it's great. So
I've never made anything so hard.
Yeah, and I did some. I think one of my beta readers said, "We're like, we love how strong and competent your women are, and the men are not." I'm like, yep, I like that too. So. Yeah, so that was sort of, she fulfilled a role that Keo was originally going to, and I took that from him because I've taken everything else from him, so why not that too?
Oh, that's gold.
Just waiting for Kriya's arc to be incredible in the next couple of books where he just turns into not the person that he is.
Well,
yeah,
that's still not. Wait, either way.
At this point, either you have to double down on his uselessness and have him like totally fuck it up, or he gets a redemption. Yeah.
He's really already kind of made a mess of it. So we'll see how much bigger of a hole he can dig himself.
How many books total have you planned for the series? I think I know this, but I forget. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so you're halfway. He's halfway through his mess.
Yep.
So book 3 is just this dude to me like.
Oh yeah, he's digging. He's going to the core of the earth. Basically, he might get there by book 4.
Every chapter, he's just still digging.
Still digging.
Back to him.
Forever digging. Kriya.
So I do have a question from Esme before we move on to some of the writing process, and that is, why do you like to make your characters and us suffer so much?
Because it's fun.
She asked me the same question.
You're right as an artist.
It is like
suffer.
I think I'm very much a believer of like the whole hero with 1,000 faces kind of thing. Like every story's already been told plot wise. Like everything sort of boils down to very similar sort of plot beats and archetypes and everything. Yeah, so I think the only way to make things truly original story wise is to have that emotional response. Yeah, because I mean, like, how many like stories, like, I mean, if you strip it down, Star Wars is a fairy tale. You can put the same plot beats of a fairy tale onto Star Wars, so like it's very, I think plot-wise, I think that's probably for me why I'm like, plot. Because it's... No, that's not so, like, I really like engaging plots. They're very important. But I also think I'm not going to get an emotional reaction out of a plot.
Yeah.
As such.
I totally agree. Yeah.
So I think that's why all of your suffering is going to come from what your characters do or experience. And I think that's where you get the emotional response, which is why I like people to suffer. And I figure that's the only way I'm going to make my story memorable. So we'll do that.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely the difference between a character writer and the plot or the world building. Like I'll say it 1,000 times where I'll forgive clunky prose, I'll forgive plot holes, I'll forgive anything pretty well if I'm invested in the characters. Like if I can't stop thinking about these poor pathetic souls, then I'll keep coming back just because I have to see them through their story, however many other mistakes there are. And I think as a writer, for me, it comes down to the fact that people are stories, like individual people are their stories. They are not an amalgamation of their life. The story is them. And so that focus and that pain is the thing that draws us together through stories, where if you can point to the parts that resonate with you because you feel like this person is keeping company with you in a similar kind of pain, that's the stuff that really sticks with us.
Yeah.
That's why, the emotional destruction is important. I like to experience as a reader, and I like to dish it out too.
Yeah, I've seen before this theory that like I can't remember where I first heard it, but this idea that fiction gives you sort of like a safe space to practice really intense emotions.
Yeah, especially science fiction and fantasy as well.
Yeah,
an additional barrier between the themes that you're thinking about and what actually reaches the page.
That's why I like this genre so much.
Yeah.
It's so wild to hear about character because I'm a plot-driven reader, so I'll forgive lazy
Oh,
character
wow.
work.
Get out.
But I am not the norm in this, which is, I was nervous going into Krystle, your book, because I knew it was so character heavy, and then actually feeling something because I'm on the spectrum.
What a
I
feeling.
don't feel emotions normally, and I was like, oh, I actually am affected by this person. So I don't know how that makes me feel, but it was just really interesting as a dynamic. All of them.
Oh, yes.
There was so much emotional damage in that book.
But it also is very intricate with its plot.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And that's probably why I'm like, I prefer character to plot, is because I find it very hard to craft plots that are like that intricate. Like, there is no way I could ever write something like Game of Thrones that is so layered with its plots. Even with what's happening in Brightwash, like, no way. That's not me. So that's why I guess I go for and say I prefer characters than plot, because it's not something that I just don't have the depth to be able to do that yet. So full props to people that can. But
I don't think anyone sets out to write a Game of Thrones or a Brightwash. It seems like
I was gonna say, like, you when you said yet, that's when you had me on board with it, because I would say, like, starting out, but like even just the first draft that I wrote, I wouldn't have said that I was capable of a deep, complicated plot.
Yeah. You used to think you couldn't write politics.
Yeah, I did. I figured, like, I can't write a political book. I'm not smart enough. I can't write.
That's what I think about myself.
And then, and what it is I can't write it on the first draft, because I can't see around the corners on the first draft. But then I discovered revision and the fact that I actually enjoy revision quite a lot, because in the art of revising the first idea, I can then go, oh, and these are all the points where I need to thread in this political arc, or all of that. So I would say, if it genuinely doesn't interest you, then absolutely, there's no reason to try it. But if it's like a goal, if it's like a thing that you think, I can't do this, but I wish that I could, I'm gonna bet that you can. You just have to give yourself the space to grow.
That's sort of why I've shelved Lace and Law,
and then make it better from there.
Yeah, that's why I shelved Lace and Law for now, because I think it requires too many layers in the plot and the world building that I'm just not ready to tackle yet. So I'm just putting that aside for now.
It's also why I'm taking a break from book 3 in the Chain of Dominion, because, like, I'm fucking tired, man. Like, those are big books.
These books have been kicking your ass for so long.
These books have been kicking my ass since, like, man,
like 2018, right? Is that when you started?
Oh, I was off. 2016.
Oh no. Are you okay?
No, I'm not okay. I'm really not. So I'm focused on Frankie now, because at most it'll have 3 point of views.
I thought it only had one.
That was the intention, but I can feel it.
I've heard this before.
I can feel it happening, and like I think when I switched to third person, that was like me giving myself permission to write Hugo too.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Oh, this is gonna be fun. I'm so excited. I feel like my role in this so far has just been to point out things that Krystle has said in the past.
Shut up.
I'm just here to put you on blast. That's why you guys have me on.
Yeah.
That's Connor's role in life.
Were there any characters that were particularly hard to write in this book as you were sort of layering and building up the world, and the opposite of that, any that were really easy?
I actually really struggled with Ray in this book. So him and Amica were the easiest ones to write in book 1. And Keo was like the bane of my existence, and Kreo as well. I just hate both of them. But then coming into book 2, and as others said, like, this is more their story. They take it center stage a little bit more. Especially Kriya, like half the book is probably with him. Sorry to people that don't like Kriya, but that's what we're there for. He's got a lot to do and mess up. He's digging his hole. He's very busy doing that. I actually found, Kriya was actually a lot easier to write in this book because he had more purpose than he did in book one. As I think book one, it was still sort of figuring out why he was there. And reshaping him, and I mean he's still being shaped in book two, but he's coming into his own a little bit more, however pathetic and terrible it might be, but he's sort of getting somewhere. So yeah, he was a lot easier to write this time around, as Keo. I think because his situation in book two is very different to what it was in book one. Book one was very heavy for him, so we're still, and it still is in book two, but they just sort of did more, where I guess in book one for Keo a lot of things were happening to him, whereas he sort of got a little bit more agency in book two, that he's driving things a little bit more, and really Ray's a lot more introspective in book two, in the Blood Curse, so that was why it found a little bit more difficult for him this time around.
I definitely liked Keo's development a lot in this book, as he just disintegrated into whatever is happening there. I don't want to give any spoilers away to people who haven't read it yet, because it's still to come out. So if we move on to the writing process, he's such a mess. He is just a messy queer.
He is, bless him.
We stand a messy queer.
He's doing his best.
Exactly. That's a selling point at this point. You got a messy queer in your book?
They're all disaster gays.
Yeah. So moving on to the writing process of book two, and I think again we have touched upon this a little bit. When we were talking The Ruptured Sky earlier last year, you were saying that you're very much a pantser. So writing City of Pants. Did that have to change when writing a sequel and keeping all your story beats sort of aligned?
Yeah, it did. I had to have some sort of direction this time around. And also because I had given myself a deadline of 12 months, I couldn't fuck around as much as I did with The Ruptured Sky, where it was like I finished the draft that I was happy with in like 2018 or 2019 for it, and then I was just sort of went at my own pace to get it out to beta reads, and I think I queried it for a little bit, and just sort of like I had that time to just work on it when I felt like it. So if I did take it down a dramatic change, I had time to do that, but I needed to have some clear direction with this second book because I did have such a tight deadline. But like that said, my outline was like chapter 1, sentence, chapter 2, sentence, like of just what the actual action is in that thing. So, chapter 3, Amika arrives in Korak. Chapter 4, this happens. Like it was just very sparse, and I would change it as I was going as well because stuff had happened, and I'm like, oh, actually, I'm going to do that. So there's another new character, Yelston. So he was not in the original plan at all. So he's part of Kriya's storyline, and he was not originally in there. And then I'm just like, what if this happened? So then I had to sort of change things up again with it. So there was the very, very light skeleton there. And I kept it ended up getting added like 6-7 chapters to it as I was going through the outline. So much more framework than previous ones. And I didn't have any plan for book 3 when I started the series. But now I do. I have like a very loose of what the characters are going to be doing and working towards. And book 4 is still a question mark, but it should take shape as I work on book 3. We should hopefully get some sort of direction happening there. But I do know how it is going to end, but it's just how am I going to get there that I don't know yet. So it's probably the plant stuff is more my sort of frame, because I do have, like I said, there are these key scenes, and there is one very, very big key scene in book 3 that has been in my mind forever. which was originally the end of book 2, but I changed it because I ended up making it a quartet instead of a trilogy. So yeah, there's very light framework, but it's still mostly just start writing and see what happens.
And when your characters just go in wildly different directions.
Well, they do things entirely that I don't expect. And then it's like, okay, I'm just going to go with that and see what happens, which was originally what happened with the first spicy scene. That wasn't planned to happen then, but it did. So, and yeah, it's just what happened in that moment. So
too horny and you couldn't stop them.
I just couldn't stop it. No.
Sometimes it do be like that though.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
We live there. Yeah.
So
yeah,
want to go back to talking about the writing process of the second book, because I know when we did our first interview, you were talking about putting this deadline on yourself to get this next book out within 12 months. So how did you go with having that hard deadline and being somewhat resistant to deadlines? Did you have to fight second book syndrome from like a writer's perspective?
Yes.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
It was
I have receipts.
It was supposed to be out in October. Originally, like I put my deadline in for February 29. And then I was like, I'm going to try and get it out earlier. So it was supposed to be at the copy editors in like July, and that didn't happen. I wasn't even halfway through the book then. Like I just lost all ability to write, and I don't even know why. Like, because I didn't have block. Why couldn't I write, Krystle? So please tell me the answers.
It's something that I think a lot of us go through, and it's a shame that it's not more talked about, but I'm trying to change it. So I think after that first book especially, but also after all the books, we have to go through a bit of a period of mourning where upon publishing, our relationship with the writing has changed. And it's a good change. It's the change that we were working for, but in the time before publishing, it was always a thing of potential, a thing that we would do one day. And before publishing, our writing was for us only, exclusively, and for some distant future where one day all the stars would align and we would be published. And so we go through all these steps and we get there and it's published and it's good and it's a thing to be proud of and it's a thing that we celebrate, but it is also a little piece of grief in that it's no longer just for us. Our relationship with writing is not a thing that we do on the side anymore. All of a sudden it has been launched into the real world where it is a thing that can build our career for us. And so we have to give ourselves time to grieve that shift, even though that shift is what we wanted. And even though that shift is a good thing and a sign of success, it's still a shift. And I think a lot of people, certainly I was, are taken by surprise with it because this is what we wanted. But it still changes something that's very deeply personal. And it still exposes us in a way that I think the depth of the exposure often takes us by surprise and how vulnerable we have to be. As we're writing and once we publish, we put that little piece of who we are into other people's hands and ask them to judge it. And it's a beautiful relationship, but also it's scary. It's scary as fuck. And so I think, and I went through the same thing after Brick and Bone, except with Brick and Bone, I knew
period.
It's a a lot like postpartum in that this thing that we sheltered. Yeah, that too. This thing that we sheltered in our soul for however many months or years is now exposed and has to go live its own life apart from us. And it's normal for that to knock us off course for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. And with Brick and Bone, I saw it coming, so I was able to tell myself that I'm not going to do anything. But after Brightwash, I didn't know it was coming, so I too thought, oh, this is easy. Now I'm going to go write this first book the second book within a year or so, and it'll be fine, right? It was not fine because I didn't see it coming. Yeah, it was not fine. So then with yeah, there's a lot of other circumstances that was adding to that.
You had like Spiffo almost immediately after there was that.
I had Spiffo, and then I was having health problems as well, and like it was all kinds of things. But that grief still took up, put an anchor on all the other writing that I was doing at the time. So with Brick and Bone, I was able to say like, okay, well, I need my grieving period, so I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to mess around with whatever I want. And then I was through it a lot faster, as it so happened. And so now I'm back to really enjoying the process again. But I think it's a thing that we all have to experience, where even though it's all going the way we wanted, it still changes us, and it's important to know it's coming and to give that change space to breathe and hurt just a little bit. Especially if we've set our expectations too high for how well it's going to go. And so in that sense, it's really good to know. It's good to know it's coming, and also good to lower our expectations as far as publishing goes, because it's a rough game. Oh no, I lost her.
Just watching her have tech issues in the background. Oh, there she goes.
Yeah. I thought you just called her out too much. She's like, I have to leave the stream. Oh no!
People out of here.
That's really interesting. You saw us all like come through and start listening really intently during that.
Yeah,
so,
no, it was literally I was starting to get emotional and everything.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just taking notes before I published. I'm like, okay, be prepared to be devastated for X amount of time.
No, it's rough. I want to say I don't think I was as affected with my debut because I didn't have as much of a connection to it. But I don't. Yeah, I was gonna say
you had a hard time, and I think the fact that book had a bad launch made it harder.
Yeah.
To tell where the pain points were, so you didn't necessarily know that you were in pain because of publishing. You
yes. No, now I'm in pain the more I think about it, yeah. No, that was I was a mess for a while. After that, and I didn't really notice how much that it fucked me. Shut up. I didn't notice how much it was fucking with me at the time. Because it was very easy, because I didn't have as much of a healthy relationship to that book. It was very easy to be like, oh, my relationship to that book was fucked up. So I didn't have necessarily the same sort of
there wasn't a
I wasn't able to conceptualize it in the same way of like, oh, it's probably just because of my relationship to the book. And then the next one came out, and I was like, oh, I see.
I love this one, and it still hurts. Yeah.
I didn't. It's gonna be like this every time, huh? Oh, okay. Yep. I didn't realize.
Yeah, I'm supposed to write a blog post about it, but
you posted something on Twitter the other day, right? About this.
That one is different. It's a different grief point for me. Just because he's locked in as like, this is the only story for him now. And he can't change genres anymore. Yeah. He just kind of has to be in the Tainted Dominion now. And I think it's part of why I've decided to take a break, because it's like I don't actually want to rush through this series. If
that makes a lot of sense.
God willing, I get to write, however many books for this series, and if that takes a really long time, then maybe that's a good thing actually, instead of rushing from book to book and then coming to the end of the story and having to not write him anymore. I think that would devastate me too much. So I'm gonna slow down.
Oh wow! Be prepared for that last book, because that's gonna be. You're gonna be that's gonna fuck you up. Holy shit. I'm probably gonna okay. I just realized the way what I was about to say is gonna sound. I was gonna say I have a very similar relation. I was just gonna say it. I have a very similar relationship to Peter. And I only have 3 books, so like I'm probably gonna get that out first, so you can just sort of gauge from that how you'll do when you get done with Hashaway.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
No, I'm not okay.
Looks like you're gazing into the void right now.
Well, I joked about it not all that long ago that it's like one day I'll write a book where Hashaway dies or something, and it'll be the last book that I ever publish because there's no. This got really dark. Anyway,
that's how I feel about these characters as well.
Yeah.
In this series for me, like they've been with me since I was like 13, so it's a very long time.
It's interesting to talk about, and like I'm only working on like my first actual work in progress right now, and it's probably going to take another couple of years before that sees the light of day. But I tried a few different ones in the meantime because this book that I'm writing is for me, and it's just for me. So whether it does well or it does poorly, if it gets published, it doesn't matter because it's just mine. And it's an homage to my transition. So it's a personal story that may not come across that way to other people. And anything I try to write,
I think my fridge is here.
That's all good.
Sorry to interrupt you there. It could have done that when my headset just died. And I'm like, right, I'll just go for a tactical wee while I'm doing that. And it said between 12 and 2. It is like 2 minutes past 12 and the motherfuckers are pulling up my driveway now. So carry on while
You want to pick up with that emotional monologue?
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming, I don't know why else a giant truck would be coming in our cul-de-sac. It would have to be the truck for the fridge. So, yes, we interrupt this for me to get a fridge delivered because that's when my husband decided to schedule it. Actually, no, I shouldn't drag him. We had no choice. It was either today or like next week, and we can't not have a fridge. We can't not have a fridge, so that's kind of
right.
Yeah. All right. I'll be back.
Remember to mute it.
Yeah. Just like
noise
coming
out. I want to hear.
I can mute it.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
Yeah, like this story. I tried to write so many other books which would be more marketable to an audience, and I'm like, I cannot because this is stuck in my brain and it has to be the first one to get out there.
I think the lie of marketable is. I mean, it's true. Certain genres are more marketable. Certain tropes are very marketable. But the most marketable thing that you have is your passion. And I think if you tell a story that's very deeply meaningful to you, it becomes much easier to talk about it as much as we need to talk about our books. Like I published Brightwash in 2021. It is now a 3-year-old book. And that is a very young age for a fantasy novel. So I'll be talking about this book ideally for the rest of my publishing life. So it better be something that I love enough to talk about for the next 40 years.
Yeah.
So I think we get caught up in the idea of sellable. But I think marketable comes down more specifically to our human connection to stories, and I think it's good actually to pursue those passion projects because
those are going to be the ones that like hit home the best.
The
things that you're most passionate about. There's like a Neil Gaiman quote about like the market where he's just sort of like, no one in like the mid 2000s was going like, you know what we need right now is a series of unfortunate events. Like no one's like, this is exactly what the market wants. That's what the people need. But it was just like, this is a dude writing a book because like his wife or fiance died and everything. And it's like a very intimate examination of death and grief and loss and like the way that society is not going to protect children and shit like that. And it's like, because it's such a personal sort of story, it sort of
it resonates.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And like one of my favorite things about the indie community is just that everyone's out here just trying to make a dream come true. And that's not necessarily for financial gain. It's just, I want to do this, therefore I will do this, and I will achieve that.
Yeah,
there's a lot of passion behind it.
It's a funny mix of passion and stubbornness.
Yeah.
I didn't go down the stubborn route, but like, it's definitely.
I am. I know who I am, brother. Like, I will throw myself down that stubborn route because I know who I am, and it takes that kind of tenacity to keep at it and keep at it and keep at it.
I think the stubbornness is healthy.
Earlier we were saying writing the book is the easiest part, but like big air quotes around easiest, right?
Oh man,
it takes a huge amount of stubbornness just to finish a novel. Never mind edit.
I was gonna say revise,
revise it, and get feedback and learn how to take feedback, and
even for revision, you have to be like brutally honest with yourself of like what your aims were and what you're capable of, and how to improve both yourself and the book. It takes it's like there are so many stories of like early writers who are just sort of like they finish a book and then they're like, now it's time to edit, and they'll just fuss around with a few sentences and go, oh, I feel very clever right now, which was certainly how I was when I started off. But then you have to be very good. Revision requires an insane degree of emotional honesty.
Yeah,
that's why I've enjoyed beta reading so much and getting to be part of that process. I'm hoping that makes me better at revising my own work to be like, that's crap.
Oh, it will. Yeah,
it will. It will make you. It'll make you a better writer, because what beta reading does, other than the very obvious joy of helping other people bring their babies to life, but what it does is it teaches you how to articulate how you feel about novels and why, and it teaches you how to track payoffs, where it's like, I like this, I liked this was great, you lost me right here.
Right.
And this was like, you lost me on page 70, but you could have fixed it on page 35 by setting it up differently. Right. And that sort of ability to see those threads is a skill that I'm not sure how else you would learn that, but for beta reading, works in progresses, other than, I guess, reading books.
I feel like I've talked about this before, but one of the things, like, I went for a degree in creative writing when I was in college, and I think honestly more important than the actual like workshops I had to do, where I had to like write like a certain amount of pieces every semester, was like even more helpful to that was like the first thing I did was all the English classes helped me to actually interrogate, like, here are the mechanics of why this thing is effective, and then the feedback you had to give everyone in the workshops, you had to give everybody in your class feedbacks for why it, like what you think works and everything. And there's a thing where being able to do that for 4 years sort of helped me. It wasn't even on purpose, it just helped me figure out how to really break a story down in its component parts in a way. When I finally managed to actually write a completed draft for like the first time in a long time, it was like I had an incredible skill set for like actually figuring out, like, okay, here's what I need to fix, and here's how I need to come at it and everything, in a way that I don't think I would have been able to do if I had not had like 5 years of practice sort of breaking everything down in so many different ways. And it's like the only way to figure out how to do that is just to do it. It definitely helped me to have other people sort of to bounce off of in terms of like a classroom setting, but it's not something you need a classroom setting to do, you know. that's really the whole reason we're here. We're all here to be Krystle Simps. We're here to be the first subscribers of your Patreon only fans.
Patreon only.
Should I look up what the word simp means, or is that not a thing I should do?
No,
I don't think it's dirty. I think it's just like
it's like dudes who are fans of like e-girls kind of thing. Like the reply guys of like, please notice me.
The dictionary says a silly or foolish person. Okay.
Oh no! Oh no, that is not how I've been. I mean, probably a little bit that actually. Now that I think about it,
that is kind of the context where it's like you love someone so much that they turn you foolish and silly and like kind of like a cartoonish version of admiration. But it's usually meant in, at least in the circle that I'm in, it's meant in a complimentary way.
It can be negative, I think, depending on the kind of person you're describing, but usually it's in an ironic way. It can often be like, yeah, I'm your biggest fan.
Yeah, and it's like we're a pro himbo crowd sort of thing.
Yeah, so exactly.
Watch my brain not understand any of what just happened.
Do you need the definition of himbo as well?
All day. I do. That's.
You also need it. So himbo is somebody
very
who's
innocent,
like
everyone.
A himbo is usually a character who's like beefy and not smart but super sweet. So Connor.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, just like big biceps, no brain.
Shade.
Yeah.
Oh no, I claimed this years ago. I claimed this label for myself in like 2021.
Big biceps, no brain, but a heart of gold, and it has to be all three. Because if it's just two, then it's other things.
Right. There's like
big biceps, no brain is a jock.
Yeah. Heart of gold, but without the biceps, you just have just a golden retriever.
Yeah.
And so you have to hit all three of the marks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were trying to figure out, like in 2021, we had a whole phase where we were trying to figure out like if any of our characters would qualify as a himbo, and you went with Toshway, but it's like no, Toshway has a few too many scenes where he's actually threatening, so I don't know if that can qualify.
Yeah, I would not go up against Toshway.
No, he's not a himbo. I think Ozra is my closest, except.
Oh yeah, I'd say Ozra. That tracks.
I don't know that he's not big though. Like he doesn't have like a presence. He's like feral and wiry kind of build.
That's true. There is
so I don't know.
It's the closest you've got though, I think. At least initially that I can think of off the top of my head. You got to put one in the Frankie story that you got.
Hugo is a himbo for sure.
Oh, there you go. This is incredible. Finally, representation.
Yeah.
Just insight into future himbo worlds.
Yeah.
I've only just realized your feet chat in the private chat. Like, what are all these notifications coming up?
I typed that. I put myself on mute and typed that like fucking 30 minutes ago, and just watched.
I can see your face cracking too. Like
I was trying to see if I could get you guys to laugh while Chris was in the middle of a question.
Yeah. It made yourself laugh though.
Oh yeah. Should I add the context for anyone who doesn't have access to the private chat?
I mean, it's funnier either way. Like, yeah, go for it.
Oh, I asked which character is most likely to send foot pics after, because we had moved on to the next question, and then I thought of that, but I couldn't interrupt you to circle back because you were in the middle of a very intelligent question. Right, exactly. I couldn't be like, hang on, before you say anything, let me jump in real quick with my cool foot joke.
And I correctly assessed
selling feet pics potentially in the future. So
yeah.
No, that's what we're doing when we're simping for Krystle. We're here to buy your feet pics.
Oh man.
Oh. Are you okay? You having a few aftershocks?
We've established.
We gotta keep busy until Jam comes back.
Yeah,
I can always unmute the mic and we can see where the fridge is at. Just screaming across the kitchen floor.
A little corner screen that just says fridge cam.
Yeah.
Oh man. Can anyone reach out to Jam, ask if there's an ETA?
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess that's not the right time for that. Oh man.
So what are you working on, Connor?
Oh God.
We've killed someone. So
Yeah.
apologies.
Yeah, no. Speaking of death, that's what I'm working on.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was that tweet that came out this morning with what you were working on, Connor? Because it sounded amazing.
This is a cyberpunk sort of a weird sapphic cyberpunk dystopian thing with ghosts.
With near-death experiences.
Yeah, it's been in my brain for like I think a year and a half or so. The initial idea was something I was going to co-write with Quen V. Olson. I still might do that. I want to make that happen, but Quen is very busy, so that has added some roadblocks to all of this. I think the initial idea was like once Quen finished Miss Percy 3, then we were going to do it in October of 2023, which was when it was expected to go out. And then there have been a few bumps in the road since. And I started sort of I became a finalist in Spiffbo, and that completely tanked my ability to work on book 2 because it's just I'm now writing in a glass box, and every time I go to write something, it's just I can feel all the people watching me now. And so I'm like, for the duration of this contest, I need to find something different to work on, or else I'm going to hate this book by the time I put it out.
I told you.
You did, yeah. That's why I'm working on something else.
No, you're like, no, you're wrong. I'm gonna go back to Peter. I miss him too much, and I'm gonna finish it by April.
I April. Peter, and then I went back because I had like the itch to go back, and then I jumped away from him when I noticed the frustration was building. But I had a solid sort of like few months there where it was all right.
Where you did absolutely nothing, and you complained about it every single day.
I was okay. I had a whole few months where I like finished like a draft or some shit. I think if I have the timeline correct in my brain. Because I finished the latest draft of book 2 in November, and that was after I was announced. So there was a bit for a while there where I was doing all right. So I jumped to this thing, which it took a while to actually get ironed out, but the basic premise of it is there's a character named Ingrid Eldritch who dies professionally for a living because in order to she's basically takes care of almost dies. In order to take care of people's supernatural problems, she needs to have a near-death experience so you can sort of cross the veil and do weird supernatural shit and then get pulled back. And the sort of catalyst for this story that I'm working on is she had an early 20s very toxic relationship with another woman, and then 8 years later that woman reaches out to her from prison because she's just killed her husband and is now being haunted by his poltergeist, and she needs her to get rid of him.
He deserved it.
Yeah, he had it coming.
Before the poltergeist, I was like, relatable.
I too.
Yeah, that tracks a lot.
Oh, I mentioned this on Blue Sky, and I had a friend of mine who's a burlesque performer in New York was like, it's very nice of you to write a book specifically for me.
How have you both found the Spiffbo experience? With,
what was that?
Being entrance and then writing and feeling like you are in a box and having to pivot. Like, how has it affected your relationship with your own works?
Oh, it's so mine hit like I was a finalist like right after I published, so mine hit at that same time where I was like kind of sorting out my relationship as a baseline anyway. So that was really hard, but I had done the same thing that Jam has done, where I was like, yeah, no, the first one's out, the second one will be easy, right? And so I imagined myself publishing within a year, and so I forced myself to work through that feeling. And the thing that I wrote was such an utter pile of shit. Like it's almost embarrassing how bad it was.
You will like aggressively, like anytime it comes up, you will apologize to Fletcher for sending it to him.
Yeah.
Like every other interaction I see from you is like, I'm sorry I made you read that.
Fletcher. Yeah.
I made you read worse, in fairness.
I guess so, but I don't know. I don't know. It was just like part of the problem that I had personally was that I had trouble knowing what my genre was.
Oh yeah.
Because when I was writing Brightwash, I didn't give very much thought to marketable genres. And then after I published Brightwash, people told me it's romantasy. No, it's grimdark. No, it's, And so I was trying to like hit those beats of like, okay, romantasy, I'm gonna learn more sex, like grimdark, and more murder. But it created like just, I totally lost focus of actually the story that I was trying to tell in the first place. And I think the level of attention from Spiffbo amplified that feeling of like, what am I even doing? Like, none of these people even agree what genre it is.
I specifically remember a moment in January, like you had in December 2021, you wrote like as a stupid amount of words in a month, like 70,000 or 80,000 words in like a month. It was like some crazy number like that. And then you sent it to people and then they started reading it in January and you started getting feedback. And at one point, there's a specific message I remember getting on Discord where we were like, I fucked my own book. I fucked it up. I wrote the wrong book. I have to do it again.
Yeah. Yep. That's the feeling because I was chasing the wrong genres. And I kind of forgot the core of the story that I was trying to tell, which is very centered on a conversation about, the cost of society. Mm-hmm. So it took a while. It took a while to pull myself back onto course. But yeah, I got there, I think. Although people are still surprised by how little sex there is in the second book. So like, I don't know, maybe I guessed wrong.
I don't think there's an incorrect guess there.
I don't know.
But watch out, because the Patreon is coming. So
yeah, exactly.
All of those sex
Brightwash XXX.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Brightwash
so
uncensored.
Doing that, it's already pretty uncensored. But doing that like all at the same time, all overlapping each other, all those different feelings was really hard to navigate. But it also taught me a lot of really valuable lessons about what I want. Yeah. And it made me stronger in the long run, but in the midst of it, it was hard to figure out like, is this going well for me? I can't even tell.
I haven't had that so far, but that's because I had some lovely people who were already finalists before me, who could have total breakdowns for me to watch 2 years in advance. So I sort of had an inkling of what was coming. There was a bit of me each time with you and Quen watching you guys sort of melt down. That was sort of like, I bet I'd be different if it happened to me. I bet I could handle it. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm built different.
Right, exactly. There's that little inkling. I think I would imagine that's something everyone kind of goes through. There's like a little bit of you that's sort of like, but if it happened to me, surely I'd be able to handle it.
I think it's one of those things that's really hard for us to articulate because it doesn't make sense for it to hurt so much. Right. Because it is such a marker of success.
Yeah.
And it's like, whatever, we just don't read our reviews, right? But it's such a strange experience because you're so visible and it's such a long
and then immediately
stretch.
As soon as it's over.
Yeah, and it's quite a long stretch. And I find like the difference between that and, for example, BBNYA was not nearly as stressful. It's not even close because BBNYA, they just announce, oh, you're through. And then, oh, you're a finalist, and oh, here are the winners, and it's just like a day of celebrating. And if you don't get any particular way, it's like, oh, that sucks. But I don't know, it does not take up the amount of brain space that the marathon,
because the reviews aren't dropping at the same sort of rate or frequency and everything. No, it's interesting. I think I don't seem to have the same sort of I mean, I don't have the same sort of issues in the same way that Krystle did in my year so far, in that like from the word go, the genre for fall has just kind of been like, what the fuck? And that's been just it the whole time. And so it's just sort of like,
what a genre too.
Yeah, and as long as people are saying what the fuck, then I know I'm on the right course. But there is, as my time in this is sort of gone on, there is that sort of like there's a sort of thing that I struggle with of like, I don't want to become like a parody of myself. I need to make sure I need to make sure I'm hitting the exact right tone and voice and everything. But am I doing like am I not doing enough that's like weird or off the wall, or is it feeling artificial or forced? And so there's some of that. There's a lot of second guessing, not necessarily genre, but it's sort of like you feel what everyone could potentially say about it, and there's so much even contradictory stuff.
Oh, sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at Jess.
No, Jess said. Oh no, that's
you don't have as much contradiction in yours. It's weird and chaotic, and then the contradiction is, and it worked for me, and it didn't work for me. But your messaging from Spiffbo has been very consistent.
Yeah. And so that part's easier. The part that sort of like is hard is just sort of like how to nail that vibe again without turning into sort of self-parody.
Yeah, which I think is part of why I really think you shouldn't be working on the series while you're in because you think you think way too much about all of it.
You know me too well.
Yeah, I meant you like a vague general you, but yeah.
I had like a good few months where I was working on it
earlier on. It was okay.
Yeah,
but the longer
I tried
you're in
January, and then that didn't work. That was where it's like, oh, we're getting into rough territory.
In January or February, you were saying I'll be done this draft by April, and I was like, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I don't have that much left in this draft. That's the part that's so frustrating about this is like I only have like maybe like a dozen more scenes I need to write to get this out, and it's like or at least to get it to beta reading. But it's like pulling teeth. It's just abysmal. It's so, and every sentence is like torture because I'm just like, this doesn't feel like enough of a Peter sentence. Peter has a very specific way of speaking that I need to nail every single time, and it's just not working, or this is too flat. And it's like I've been drafting this shit since like November, December of 2022, and so I'm just like I've been trying to write it badly on purpose for a while, and now I'm just like, can I just write it good this time? I just need to get these scenes done, but this is not the time to sort of like focus on writing clean. So at this point, it's just sort of like I need to take a step away, and maybe if I work on a novella, I can get something out this year.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot to be said for like side projects and whatnot, just to help take your brain away for a little while.
Yeah, you put your characters in the corner so you can think what they did.
Yeah. Well, I do also think we put too much pressure on ourselves to stay on one project, but I think about Fletcher, who had like two different series that were only just two different series where he had only published the first 2 out of 3 books, and then he did a whole other trilogy, and then when he felt ready, he circled back and finished book 3 of those 2 series, and so now he has 3 completed trilogies, and they came out in a weird order, but people who liked them still went and bought them. Like it doesn't actually matter as much as we tell ourselves it does. Mm-hmm. So I think we put too much pressure on writing our careers linearly.
That's part of why I'm doing
time.
I remember you telling me about that a few months ago, which was part of why I was like, I'm gonna do this novella thing, because it was sort of like I had this idea of like, I want to get something different out before I finish book 3, because I don't want like, I would be absolutely terrified if I finish this trilogy and then I'm just like, oh no, I have no assurances anyone's going to show up for whatever the next thing I do is. That's terrifying to me. So I need some sort of off ramp onto the next thing. And so this idea of novellas is an easy sort of on ramp to something else that I can pivot to. Even if like the book, whatever I do after this trilogy turns out to be like a book-sized thing, at least I can have something to point at to be like, and this is what's happening next. Here's the general vibe of what I'm going for.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris. No, we talk so much. You go ahead, please.
I think that's interesting because even like coming into this thing that I'm writing at the moment, I was like, all right, I want 2 books done before I go to a dev editor, and I want to try and give 2 books to a dev editor at one point, and then like that idea has just completely fizzled out and been like, just write a
Don't
fucking
do
book,
it.
just write a
Yeah.
book, get it to an
Well,
editor,
Yeah.
and then move
And
on.
also a dev is going to change it so much that your second
Right.
book will be unrecognizable from
Right. Yeah.
like where you started, at least if you're talking about 2 concurrent books.
Yeah, that's what happened to me with Sword in the Street. I had a whole book 2. There's a whole like 50,000 to 60,000 word book 2 for Sword in the Street, a sequel that never got that I could never put out because I got dev edits back, and my editor was just like, "This ending doesn't work. It needs to be changed." And I resisted for so long until eventually it's like, "Fuck, he's right, isn't he? I have to completely redo the ending so that it doesn't happen."
That was also part of my problem with Brick and Bone, to be totally honest, because I started working on Brick and Bone while Brightwash was in edits. And those edits changed that book quite a lot, as it so happened.
I remember.
And so all of the things that were really important in book 2, like Ishmael plotting to kill Toshway, are suddenly not going to work as plot points.
Oh man.
Because the book and the character relationships have changed so much that like I was kind of trying to save certain things. Like, okay, so how can I make Ishmael try to kill Toshway while they're on the same side and actually quite fond of each other? Can that work? Is that anything?
Can you repeat that sentence again just because Jam sat down?
I muted you. Hang on, let's see if I can unmute you. There you go.
Yeah, she's good.
Are you dragging me?
No, I was saying what was I?
We're still talking about abandoned plot points from book 2.
Yeah, so I started writing Brick and Bone before Brightwash was finalized. I did it to keep myself busy while Brightwash was in edits, and those edits came back and changed the relationships in Brightwash quite substantially, so that plot points in Brick and Bone no longer fit, such as Ishmael plotting to kill Toshway. Yeah, there's the eyebrows. And for quite a long time, I was trying to like save it as a plot point. As like, okay, well, yeah, he tried to kill Toshway, but they're on the same side. He's helping, right? It could have been fun. Yeah, he's helping. At one point, it was like, okay, so they're just gonna fake his death. I don't know.
I remember that you kept that one for a while.
I did keep that one for a while.
One thing that I admire about you as someone who's really good at revising is that like there is nothing that you that when you're writing that is too sacred for you to sort of scrap and sort of if it will make for a better story. Like I've known other writers who are very precious with their world building and the ideas that they have, and then they'll try and like reverse engineer a reason for stuff that doesn't work to fit, and then it becomes a sort of bloated mess. And then, but like with you, I remember when you dropped a specific plot point with Ishmael that you had been trying to make work for like a year and a half at that point. It was like I was blown away that you even like abandoned it at any point, and it was like clearly not an easy decision for you, but at the end of the day it made for such a better story. And I think that's a skill that like it's so hard to be honest with yourself on that level, and that's such an incredible skill to me that I find very impressive.
Got to kill those darlings.
Yeah, well, but I think only if there's no better option, because it's like I'm also a big fan of making our darlings work, where they're so integral to the plot that they can't possibly leave. But you have to know the difference between a darling worth fighting for and a darling that is actually weighing it down. And yeah, there were a lot in Brick and Bone, and that was a really painful relationship to evolve. To the point where like I'm only just learning to love that book recently. But I'm learning to love that book now, and I can see like love that book. I stand behind the choices that I made, like that refocused things in such a way that was really important for the arc, and I'm happy with how the dust settled, as it were.
You have one of my favorite 30,000 word openings in that book.
Shut up.
30,000 words. It's like half my book.
Yeah.
But welcome
God,
back,
it's like
Jess. How did the
10%.
fridge go?
Yeah.
Well, okay. They took off my door, so that can be a problem.
No.
And actually, I forgot to disconnect the water. So when they took the plumbing out, it just went everywhere. The water. So that was fun because I'm a dumbass.
Well.
I'm like, I've turned it off. It's not going to squirt water everywhere next minute. So that was a thing. And yeah, my door's now disconnected, so that can be a project for hubby when he gets home. Door back on.
Don't tell him. Just let it be a surprise.
They're like, it's not getting in the front door. And I'm like, well, it got in the house somehow. So it's got to get out somehow. So yeah, we went through the backyard. But it's cooling down because all of my meat. So my husband works in an abattoir, so we always have a lot of meat. And it's currently shoved into an esky. So hopefully that will stay nice and cold.
True Australia style.
Yeah, true. I didn't even go and buy ice for it. I've got lots of Zupa Dupas in there, so that's like insulating my esky at the moment.
I don't know what any of these mean.
That's fine. And the good old frozen peas, so that's keeping my steak cold. And otherwise, we're going to be eating a lot of steak very quickly. Hopefully, it should be fine. Sorry.
How do you explain
it's an icy pole.
Ice lolly thing.
Oh, like a freezy.
Like it's like a long tube of sugar, frozen sugar.
Yeah, it's a freezy.
Pole. Yeah, it's a super duper.
I'm with Jem on this one. That's not a freezy.
What is a freezy?
I've never heard it called that in my life.
Okay, so I think Canadians call things dumber things than we do. Like the so spiders, right? No, we say you know what a spider is, right, Chris? The drink. A spider. Do you know what they call them in Canada?
What is a spider? No,
floats. They call them floats, and that just sounds like a shit in the toilet.
Oh, like a river float?
That's Australianism.
Yeah, like a cider float, soda float, or whatever they're called. A float, like where you put a.
Do them with root beer.
Oh, really?
Float. Yeah, we always.
Ours is like creaming soda is usually the main one, isn't it?
Anything.
Put ice cream in. And the ice cream, but I remember like when I had a Canadian at uni, and they're like, it's called a float, and I'm like, oh, what? That just sounds like something in the toilet. Anyway. But apparently it's funny that we say slippery dips as well.
Is that what they're called?
No, a slippery dip. It's like a slide at the park, a slippery dip.
I had to think about what a slippery dip was.
Those slippery dips. Anyway.
I don't have kids, so we do. I just call them a slide. Anyway, so this is probably a question that all of you can answer because I have to pee. So I'm going to shamelessly leave this question open.
Tactical way.
Exactly. Like over the past 12 months, this was for Jess, but as you're all writers and you're all sort of going into second, third book territory, since the launch of your first books, how have you gone about building a really positive relationship with the community, and how important has it been for you in terms of that continued motivation?
Oh, we just all plug Krystle.
Yeah, honestly.
You need a long answer because the last time is really far away.
Introduce you to other people, and then from there it's just sort of you get into the community. That's Krystle is your way in. That's how you do it.
You can climb me. I'm the social ladder, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you are everyone's intro to sort of the community.
I did it by accident. Like I did it. Like, oh geez, I joined Twitter like in 2020 or 2014 because I was flipping through Writer's Digest, which kind of tells how old I am and how long I've been in this game.
This is ages ago. This is ancient. You could flip through it like a book.
You could, they were books. Oh, I don't have any anymore. They were like books.
No,
but like,
I had some when I was 15. That my grandmother got for me.
Yep.
Isn't that Reader's Digest? Is there a Writer's one too?
There is a Writer's Digest.
Oh yeah, no, Writer's Digest. That was what I had. I had Writer's Digest because my grandmother wanted me to get publications in magazines.
Yeah.
In like 2011.
Writer's Digest lists like agents and publishing houses and contests and mags that are all taking submissions. And it also has like some craft articles and stuff like that. So when I was a teenager, I bought quite a few of them, and then when I decided I wanted to get back into writing for publication, I bought another one in 2013 or 2014. And in Writer's Digest, a lot of the agents were saying you needed to have a social media platform, and so I was like, okay, well, I'll check out Twitter. That's a social media platform, right? And I'm such an attention whore. That like I think I said something to an author that I was reading at the time, and they responded back to me, and I was like, "What? I like it here. I'm staying." And through that, eventually, I became friends with Sam Hawk, or Hawk rhymes with fork. I cannot do the accent to save my life.
Sam Hawk.
Wait, does hawk and fork not rhyme for you guys?
Yeah, see, there it is.
What?
Yeah, say
no.
So, hawk and fork.
Hawk and fork.
Well, I'm still trying to get, because you guys have trauma rhyming with llama, and that blows my mind. Like trauma and llama do not rhyme.
So I made friends with Sam, and through her, I made friends with Nick Borelli, who does the.
Oh yeah, I love that guy.
Follow Fridays, and through the Follow Fridays, I made friends with the indie crowd, and I still didn't have a book finished, so I had like, quite a few friends made. So I forgot what the question was.
Oh, it's how do
community. So definitely it is Twitter. Twitter was instrumental, I think.
Yeah.
I tried Instagram, and it's too hard to really build unless you're like super aesthetic.
Yeah.
And I'm not aesthetic, so
Twitter is like a shooting from the hip kind of platform.
Yeah.
I dig that. Like my attention deficit problems really connect to that kind of style of I'll just say something stupid and come back and buy that.
Scream it to the void.
So yeah, I think the community is just, it's such a great space to be. Like I feel like I've lucked into the most amazing family that I didn't even know was out there waiting for me.
It is very intimidating to break into, though, if you haven't.
I believe it.
Didn't have like I've had a Twitter for ages as well, like 2014 or something, but I wasn't using it hugely. So actually breaking into the indie community, because I really only decided to go indie probably in when did I launch? 23. So probably in, what year is it? 23. So probably in 22 was probably, beginning of 22 was probably when I really decided that I was going to go indie. So it was like, okay, I need to start doing the community. But I really didn't, until I read Brightwash, and then started like flailing over Krystle. I think that was when I really got
1,000 indie careers.
Yeah, and then you just get Connor by default. So
I'm the get one free and the buy one get one free package.
All right, we love you.
You're the original ladder climber.
Yeah, exactly. Yes,
this
I'm
is
the
such
OG.
an in-joke. I just want to be clear that I'm not being insulting.
No, I'm not
or rude. It's like I'm fine with it. I'm so happy.
You've made your peace with me. You're stuck with me, and you sort of.
I also mean like the ladder climbing comment. Like I I'm not actually trying to be mean.
Oh yeah, you're not trying to like subtweet me or something.
No, yeah. It's just like. I'm genuinely happy to help people because I feel like
you're one of the most approachable people.
Oh, shut up!
No, they're terrifying. Like, I was terrified, so terrified.
It's crazy to me because I first reached out to Krystle in I think like very early on before
right after I published and
and I thought that Krystle was super successful, but I didn't necessarily really care. So I reached out and I was like, hey, you seem like you know what you're doing. I got like 30 pre-orders on my debut. Is that a lot? And Krystle had like 18. So they're like, this fucking asshole
15.
over here is asking me if that's a lot.
Yeah.
And that was I think I joined Twitter in like 2020. And I went about it in the most autistic way possible. Connecting with authors was my strategy at the time was they seemed so knowledgeable and above me who had no sort of book out. So I found every sort of person who had their DMs open, and I would read their books, and I'd tag them in a giant thread, just telling everyone how great it is and everything. And it was just I would and then eventually when I was done with it, I'd circle back and I'd DM them the most sort of formal, sort of Victorian boy letter you've ever seen. Dear Mr. or Mrs. or
Sir stroke madam.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Dear Miss Olsen.
Yes, yeah.
But
Quan
still has a
screenshot of it. Yeah, dear Ms. Olsen, I'm writing to inquire.
Yeah,
just the most formal thing. I think.
But it is intimidating.
I stopped right before I reached out to Krystle, so you were like the first one who didn't get like a dear Mr. or Ms.
I got cheated, man.
Yeah, no, it was, but that was the thing. That was like the sort of what the thing I did to sort of I don't know, lower the temperature on it, make it less intimidating. For a while, I would bring my laptop over to Kira, my fiance, and I'd be like, hit enter for me, because I can't do it myself. Because I would think of it like sending an email. Sending a DM was like an email for me, and so I was like, I can't do this. But like I would reach out to anyone as long as I had DMs open. And only later did I learn that apparently that's a very scary thing for most people.
But I think like you've just got to like, I mean, the reason I connected with Krystle is because I really liked Brightwash, and then we like started bantering through that, and then we realized that we had a lot in common. And I think if you like, there was, of course, obviously Krystle is very successful in the industry, well, in the community, and that wasn't the reason though, that it's like, don't just go after people that are big, go after people that you genuinely align with. So I think that's what's sort of been helpful in opening everything up for me, even though I'm still a small bean. But I'm sort of getting in the right path because I found someone with similar like alignments with books and like reading and audiences.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, we're all kind of dreaming the same dream over here.
Yeah.
Regardless of how far we are on the path of it, we're all just kind of doing our best. And I think bloggers as well are kind of the heroes of the industry, in that we couldn't possibly shout about our books enough if we were alone. If this was our job alone, we'd never be able to do it. And so bloggers being so willing to do it for free, you know, and for just out of the passion. We're getting paid. Like
yeah, they are. They're just doing it because they enjoy reading.
Books, and they want us to keep dreaming our dreams. So I think just, you know, remembering that we're all people in it for the love of books just makes it really easy to invest on an emotional level. Hey, you're back.
And I think getting into Spiffbo so soon after my debut as well was timely, in that is such a community-based event. So it really does help you meet people. It opens up banter and everything on Twitter. Because I think Twitter is the OG for writers. I think it's the best platform for it. And yeah, it just really opened up the community that way. But I got started on a couple. So really early on, I did the SSF debut indie showcase with JC Rycroft, and we stumbled on that randomly. I think don't know if it was through Facebook on one of like the ARC pages or something, and it was just like, hey, we should do a thing, and then it became a thing, and we sort of put together a whole bunch of people that were debuting that time, and that was a great sort of lift. So like we were with Michael Michelle and Yao Silver. Who else did we have in there?
Cam Sinclair, I think.
Cam Sinclair, well. Yep. Cam Sinclair, JC Rakoff, she's doing amazing with her Sapphic Fantasy. So shout out to her. She has had a fantastic first year. BSH Garcia as well. So quite a few that we met in that. It was just like, hey, who can we find that is debuting around this time? And that was actually Chris that helped us with that. Because I'm like, hey, Chris, what indies do you know? And he's like, well, I've got a list for you. And that sort of helped. Again, it just shows that it can be intimidating, but the whole thing, it's just community and networking, and you just have to do it as much as it goes against the grain.
Yeah.
But I get it though. It's the same from a blogger perspective, like reaching out to, you as artists. Like I sent Connor and Danny Finn a message the other day, which I've been thinking about for 3 months, being like, just fucking press send. Just do it.
Oh wow.
About
I didn't know it was that intimidating. Wow.
Oh, I've deleted so many messages being like, no, now's not the right time. I'm back at a different point in my life. And even Krystle, I just sent an interview off to them. And
shit!
I just wanted to put that little plug in there.
Forgotten.
What?
About being, this pillar for
I knew I was forgetting something. I've been so stressed, like I'm forgetting an interview, I thought I was forgetting this specific interview. I'm like, no, it's right here. It's on my calendar. I don't know why.
All good, but I think we have a flow-on effect. So as a reviewer side of things, it's like we just love talking to authors because we're just big nerds who want to.
But we're all scared of each other.
Right. Everyone is scared of one another.
Yeah, it's true.
So I guess the last serious question I have, and you sort of touched upon it, so if you want to just skip it, let me know. But it's sort of for other indie authors as a group of authors who have, as a group of people who have now done this. We've got a lot of people debuting this year. Like the idea of the break-ins is fantastic, but there are still people out there who are looking to debut this year or next year. So for the authors who are trying to get a leg in, for each of you, what has been the most successful marketing tactic that you've found?
Persistence.
Krystle.
Persistence. I think we get in our own ways. I think in many ways for marketing, we're our own worst enemies in that we imagine people are sick of hearing from us. But the thing about social media is there's so much noise. It takes so much exposure for somebody who has no other connection to us to even remember our names, let alone the fact that we have books. So it's important to remember just to keep pushing your book, but also it's important to keep exposing your potential market to you. And the thing about Twitter, I think the reason why so many of us gravitate towards that is because we can be there hanging out with each other, goofing off, and it's still kind of marketing because it feeds our faces into people's
you're visible.
Timelines. Yeah, and so then after somebody gets to know us and goes, oh, they're funny, I like them, and then they have a book, and then it all just adds to the layers of their familiarity with us.
Yeah.
And so basically it's just be a pest. It's okay. I'm giving you permission to do it.
Yeah.
Be a pest. And have fun. And I think also let yourself prioritize the platform that works well for you.
Yeah. Don't spend your time wisely. Don't be on like a video app if you're not sort of optimized for that, and it's taking a lot of time to get that out.
Yeah, it's certainly not at first. Like eventually it is good to diversify, but I think as you're getting yourself in the door, figure out what your skills are and figure out what parts of this business feed those skills really well. And if you're really good at taking those beautiful photos and doing those incredible layouts, then hit Instagram really hard and just love it. Do it and love it and stay at it.
Don't be on Twitter just because we said it works for us, right?
Right. If you hate Twitter and you would rather eat your own boot, it's okay. You don't have to come. Like, there are other markets on other platforms. And I think
and I know other indies who are very successful, but they don't use Twitter at all. They're purely Instagram.
Yep. And I think that very much lies in people exploiting their own skill set really brilliantly. And I think it's okay to not have all the apps. I think it's better to be, at least at the beginning, while you're figuring it out, I think it's good to hit one skill really hard.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to try new things at least.
Eventually,
especially if what you're doing is not working for you. I think it's important to sort of go. You really got to get comfortable going out of your comfort zone, even when it's like reach out to that person who seems like a bit too big for you. I think that's the best advice that I would have, is just sort of like, there's a voice in your head that's going, I'm too annoying. I'm talking about myself too much. Or I shouldn't reach out to that person. They're not going to like me. And it's like the best advice is just to take that voice and just sort of hold its head underwater until the bubbles stop. just hold it down until the task is done, and just make sure, get it done, get out of there.
Yeah.
I remember messaging Rob J. Hayes once, very much like conning your message. I was like, please, sir, hello, Lord of India. May I please bother you with a question? And it was like, can I take your indie lists and make that a video? Because I know Daniel Green tried it and it didn't work for his audience because he wasn't making money, so he stopped it. Do you mind if I give that a platform? And he was like, yeah, dude, do what you want. And I was like, okay, thank you. I'll be leaving now.
Yeah. Well, the big secret that isn't very well kept is that we want to sell books, actually. And so anyone willing to like help out with that is kind of our hero, actually. So
literally.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, to round off, Jess, it's the question that we have to ask at the end of every interview that all authors hate. What's next? What's coming next from the world of Jessica A. McMinn?
Oh, well, nothing at the moment. Hey, Chris, you know when I said, hey, do you want to do you want to edit a novella for me in May? That's not going to happen. You can take that off your list. I'm like halfway through chapter 1 on that. So,
that's okay.
Yeah, look.
Give yourself time to grieve this next book. Because it was hard for you. It was really hard for you.
Oh, it was shit.
What's next for Jem is mourning.
Really, really shit. So I'm really glad it's done.
It's okay for that to be in your feelings for a while, and it's okay to need a minute to fall back in love with this dream.
Yeah.
And I encourage you to leave yourself the time to do that.
Right.
Even though the structure of the interview demands an answer. I say, give yourself the time to grieve and fall in love again. And the project that you come back to when you're in love again is going to be magic.
So I have been writing, but I've been writing between 3 different projects since I finished The Blood Curse. So I wrote a submission for Grimdark magazine, which is set in the world of the Law and Lace project that I was tinkering with, but I think I am going to shelf that for now. As I said before, that I think what I want to achieve with it's not in my skill level at present. Like as in I don't have the time to devote to it. I need to very much have dedicated days specifically to writing, to do that. So I'm also then working on another sort of world called Yokai Rising, which is my just sort of like love letter to manga and sort of Japanese history and folklore, everything I sort of loved as a teenager. So I'm basically taking what I would love to see in a manga and putting it into a novel form. So I'm working on a novella for it, which is probably what I'm prioritizing now. But I have
You just had an idea recently.
I did just have a really crazy idea. That's not going anywhere. Okay. So yeah, like ideas pop up, but I can't dedicate time to that now. So there is going to
go back. Yeah, okay, I can feel that.
So, but I have written a very loose outline of what I want to achieve in book 3. So I guess that's a start to me sort of coming back into that. The main thing will be for the next installment of Gardens of War and Wasteland that will be out will be a 2.5, which will be a novella focused on Emeneus's backstory. So she will come in as a POV character in book 3, so I need to spend some time, specifically with her. So that's what I will be. That's going to be the next foray into Widhullen. Will be with her in a little sort of prequel origin story thing for her, and yeah, probably 2 years I'd say before we see a next a book 3.
Yeah,
but Mama needs a break from it.
Yeah,
I didn't notice there was no pre-release date for the next one.
Oh yeah, no, I was like, I am not doing that again. But like, so when I did that for the last one, I originally started drafting book 2 in 2019. I'd written a couple of chapters, but I changed almost everything because I've then changed so much from the Ruptured Sky before it was published. So there was already, probably about 6,000 words and a bit of an outline in place when I went to think about publishing the Ruptured Sky, and it did have published the Blood Curse, whichever book I'm talking about. There was already there was a bit of overlap. I had made progress. I think when the Ruptured Sky was released, I was about maybe 25k into the Blood Curse, and I was having really good momentum. So I'm like, I can do this. But yeah, no, it died very quickly. As sort of what Krystle was saying, you do have that sort of period of it going from being a hobby to being a source of income. And I think I did get a little bit of like crippled under the pressure of that, because I did make some changes in my working life to try to accommodate more time to dedicate to writing, because I know you need to keep producing and being visible to be successful. So I was like, right, this has to make money, because I've now cut back office hours to try to accommodate more writing time. So I felt that pressure as well, which really made me struggle, because I'm like, oh, I've made these decisions to follow my dreams and I'm fucking it up. So there was a lot of well, not external, it was all myself putting these pressure on me. So that's what we do to ourselves, and that ruined me for a good 6 months last year.
I want to reiterate, you are doing above average in terms of like how your reception and the amount of sales you've gotten and everything of that nature.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't do as well as you've done with the amount of resources you've had and the amount of time you've been here.
Yeah.
Most people, in fact.
I need to accept that. I'm a perfectionist, high achiever. So if I'm not making bank, I'm not successful. But that's not true. I need to realign my brain.
I will say I struggled with that as well in my first year. I remember I made the first month Sword in the Street was out. It made, I think, $198 in its first month. And I went, this is it. I've made it. I have a career now. And then I made like $8 the next month. And I'm like, I don't know what happened. Why
am I failing?
Right. Yeah. And then I think Krystle was the first person to be like, oh, honey, what are you doing?
Yeah, and I remember you saying like, if I just do one more book, then I'll make however many, and it's like, oh, honey.
Oh yeah, yes, I remember that.
1 or 2 books.
Oh, yeah. I remember. Oh, I was a sweet summer child,
and now I'm that sweet summer child.
Yeah, and it breaks my heart.
It's a circle of life.
Go through it. Yeah. Yeah, again, like I was really lucky where I knew ahead of time to set my expectations horrifically low. And so I decided to publish in spite of really low expectations.
Yeah, was gonna like be anything, I think, right? You thought it was like 2 people were gonna check it out or some shit like that.
Yeah, pretty much. I was like, so if five people, maybe 10 buy it and enjoy it, then it'll be worth it, because what chance do I have in querying? Is probably none. So yeah, so
Spiffbo finalist, baby.
Yeah.
And look at you now.
And look at me now and all of my anxiety issues.
It never ends. This is life now. Godspeed.
Right. Yeah. So what my prediction? I'm gonna predict something for you, in that I think in like a year or two from now, when you're a Spiffbo finalist, you are going to have a moment when you look back and you're like, I was too harsh on my sort of debut year self. I was doing really good, and I gave myself no credit for it, because that's.
Oh, I don't think I will ever have those thoughts about myself. I am always like, no, you should have tried harder.
Listen, that's what I would have said when I was in your position, in terms of it being out for like a year or so.
I hope so. I hope I can be gentle with myself.
Yeah,
I think as you see the build, you'll kind of realize, like, I think we tell ourselves a lie of the one book that launches the career.
Yeah.
But I think the longer you're in the industry and the more you're talking to other writers, you realize, like, even the ones that it looks like they burst onto the scene overnight, we're still building something. Yeah, for a while. And it's like Brightwash is a really good example of that, in that as far as an indie novel goes, it launched quite well, and I was very fortunate. But that's because I was building a platform for it for about 3 years before I even had it finished, where I was talking about it and marketing it. I was marketing it before it was finished, just because I talk a lot.
You didn't even know you were doing it, but then
I didn't. Yeah, I was just talking about it.
I remember you predicted that fall would land about with the same kind of reception Brightwash did, and then that was exactly what happened. You spent 2 months going, I told you. I told you this would happen.
Because you talked about it so much. And I think we tell ourselves that we need to keep our secrets with our books, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, talk about it incessantly. Again,
that's definitely what I'm going to try and do with new series, with the Yokai Rising, because I'll be
I will also say,
dropping all my stuff.
When I debut, sorry, I interrupted. I just realized.
That's okay. Go for it. Go. I've already forgotten. It's gone out of my brain now.
Oh, no, I'm the worst.
Yes, you are, but we love you anyway.
I appreciate your willingness to look past my flaws, many as they are. No, I when I initially debuted, I think Krystle can back me up here. I was not nice to myself, even a little bit. And the process of writing fall was like, Krystle had to encourage me to be like,
you were kind of like, you had kind of given up a little bit, and I think in a way you had to, because you kept coming to me month after month of, how do I fix my momentum this month, this week, right now? And it was like, honey, sit down.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I only started figuring that out around, like, I think mid 2022-ish, ironically around the time when you sort of took a step back from the community, was when I started putting the pieces together of, like, I'm just not going to check how this book is doing. I implemented a policy with myself of, like, anytime I feel the desire to check my sales or check Goodreads, I'm writing a sentence of this book. And
God, that's a great idea. I need to do that, because I reckon I would. I must check probably about 10 times a day. It's toxic.
Yeah.
That's also I did that when I compared myself to other people too. That was also how I got out. Like, anytime I was like, I wish I was doing as good as this author, I would go and I would be like, no, I'm going to interrupt that thought and go write another sentence of this book, because that's how I get to where they are.
Yeah, and I think that is.
Is that a cat?
I also got distracted by the cat.
That's Hobbs. He's stealing the dog bed, and he knows the power that he has. Hey, buddy.
Well, that's cats for you.
Yeah, but
I have a cat that's going around my legs right now.
Is it Clover? I love her.
It is Clover.
I actually don't know where mine is.
Can I pick you up?
Yeah, I would say, and this kind of probably links back to the question you asked about, people coming into the business. Is you got to remember that your first you don't live or die on your first book. Your first book is not your only book. Your first book is only the first step in hopefully a lifelong journey. And And yes, it is valuable to give that step the best chance that it can get by marketing ahead of time and all of that stuff. But if you didn't nail it the first time, just go write another book, and you can you learn as you go, and you're growing without even realizing how much you're growing in your skills and also in your presence, and these books build on each other. And so I think
it's like I heard someone say once that like the first book you ever write like will be your worst book.
That was part of the pain point that I was talking about earlier with Toshway specifically, where there will come a point where I'll have other stuff in my career that people will be like, yeah, you can start with Brightwash, but the best book is this other series. And it's
I had that thought just the other day. Oh God.
Yeah. But that's a symptom of us doing the right thing. So we can grieve it, but also embrace it and go write another book.
Yeah.
One that you love. One that you love when you're ready to love it. And I think that shows.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
You learn to be nicer to yourself as you go on.
And nicer
it's
to
gonna
the
happen,
books,
I promise.
Yeah.
What was that?
Nicer to the books too.
Oh yeah, I was so much meaner to Sword in the Street.
Yeah.
than I am
Poor
now.
Sword in the Street.
Yeah.
It did its best. It was trying its best. I wrote it when I was 23.
I was gonna say you started very young with your publishing journey, so
yeah. It's a miracle that Krystle put up with me for as long as she has. You met me when I was young and didn't know anything, and you tolerated a lot.
Yeah,
we're getting moderated.
Yeah. We will close off the live stream here. We'll continue our chats afterwards.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
But this has been the chaotic launch of The Blood Curse by Jessica.
Hey, we answered questions. We were professional.
Yeah.
Which is coming to everyone on the 30th of March. Is that got the right date?
Yeah, Easter Saturday. Is that an actual day for Easter, or is it just I don't know.
So everyone
Saturday.
has free time.
Saturday is like the only day not included in Easter. You get
is it?
You get Friday,
Sunday,
you get Sunday, and then you get Saturday is like it's just there.
Well, it's the perfect day for everyone to go buy a book.
So if everyone's wondering what they should do on Easter Monday, because they've already had 3 days off, the Blood Curse is there for you to be.
Yes,
right, exactly. Yeah.
And the Ruptured Sky is only 99 cents at the moment until the 22nd of April. So
what a steal!
Go grab it.
What a deal. But a big thank you to Jess, Krystle, and Connor for joining me today on the channel. We had a fridge delivery come through. We had some chaos. We all pushed each other. I don't know what was said at the beginning.
We've been thoroughly plugged.
We've been plugged. That's what was said at the beginning. So thank you everyone for plugging along with us. We will catch you next time.
Bye, Mom.
Bye.